Welcome to AURN Digital and our roundtable on LGBTQ Pride. My name is Joshi and I'm an artist, and with me is...
My name is Tashan Lovemore. I am phenomenal.
Awesome. My name is Doreen Pierre and I'm dapper.
My name is Marwa El-Tahir and I'm passionate.
First question, who is part of the LGBTQ community and why are they included? Or why not are they?
I'm going to start off with that one. I want to say that LG is part of the community. And that's it. The B is overlooked. The T is overlooked. And the Q, I mean, it's coming to a place now where people are talking about it now. And like, the Q is brought up a lot more now. But the B is overlooked and the T is overlooked.
Why do you think they're overlooked? In what way?
Well, for one, I don't think anybody sitting at this table knew, other than Doreen, that I was a man of trans experience.
That you're what?
A man of trans experience.
Okay.
So when I go into spaces, that's often overlooked. Like if they think about the T, they think about the women only. So the representation for the men isn't really there. It's not visible.
I don't think so. There's this hot guy that I follow on Instagram who used to be a woman, and like I just cannot. I'm just like, yeah, no, it's hot. So I don't personally overlook it. I think that is also the B isn't either. My first boyfriend was bi, and so I just already was like, yeah, totally.
When people outside of the community think about LGBTQ, they might just be thinking about the LG.
I think just because that's the face that's been on the fight for so long, that's what's in people's brain that they need to accept, you know what I mean? Just gay and lesbian. Like the rest, well, trans, is coming into the fold, but I think that it's always just been about getting rights just for same-sex couples and just like that in a social space that maybe the others were overlooked just because like they could kind of hack it in a way, you know what I mean? Like a trans person who is, you know, male as far as like to my eyes, like that's what you are. Like you're a man and there's no qualms really. You can fit in that and it wouldn't be an issue. Or if like it's a, you know, male to female transition, you look like a woman. Like if you're doing that, that's totally fine. I don't see anything, you know, there's no issue. But when it's like a man and a man together or a woman and a woman together, socially, that's hasn't been acceptable, you know what I mean? So like that was the fight for such a long time that is the face of LGBTQ, you know?
I mean, I think you gotta look at, I mean, there's so much nuance to this question. Only because if you look inside the community, outside the community, it's two different things, right?
True.
So like, again, we have to think about patriarchy, right? So when you talk about LGBT, right, even though the L is first in the acronym, right? Gay men come first, right? So those are the people that are like most in the spotlight, and it's usually white gay males, right? And then you talk about lesbians, bisexuals, trans, those are all, you know, within the acronym, but a lot of times I feel like are siloed within the community. Oftentimes everybody wants to have their own affinity group, right? And so that can leave out folks. I've had people who transitioned from female to male and feel like they don't have a space to go to. They feel more comfortable with the lesbian community because that's who they were with. And now it's like, okay, do I go hang out with the, you know, just the straight macho guys? Or like, where's the in-between? Where do I find that? Or why don't I feel comfortable to come into a space where it is queer or lesbian and find a place? So I think there's definitely a lot of nuance to the question itself. So for myself, I don't like to police who can be a part of the community, who cannot.
Straight people cannot. I'm sorry.
I mean, straight people cannot. I'm saying,
you're not there.
I know, I hear that, but I'm saying outside of that, there's just so many, there's so many identities that aren't even encompassed in this.
Well, you know, it's plus now. It's
right.
LGBTQ plus.
I mean, we have questioning, we have asexual, we have so many.
So literally everyone but the heteronormative.
Well, I think that's why I like the term queer so much, just because it's like such like an umbrella term. I mean, for me, this question, like who is part of this community, is like if you identify within it.
Yeah.
And that can mean like a lot of different things to different people. But it's funny, the other day I was on the train with like, I like met this man who was like 50 plus. And I was like, yeah, here, whatever, I'm queer. And then he was like audibly like cringed. And I was like, what's wrong? And he was like, oh, I just like didn't realize people like use that word now. And then he was thinking about it in terms of like when
Like
it was like
derogatory, right.
And I was like, no, we've reclaimed it. It's ours. Like I feel very comfortable with it. Like I mean, I personally am bisexual, but I feel like that term is very like reductive. I don't like enjoy it. And so I think just like using the term queer also helps like dispel a lot of like the binaries that like humans like to put like gender and like sexuality like into.
Yeah, you use queer, and I actually have a friend who I guess at first, you could say she was a lesbian, but she also now identifies as queer and also with the pronouns they. And that also is a thing for her where it's like, I don't have a space where I can feel safe saying that to everyone, but that's how I identify and that's what I label myself as. And I feel like she felt scared to say that because even still in 2019, because like, and I had a conversation the other day with somebody about this because people just don't get the they part. Like they don't get the pronoun issue. Like, I don't know. And even I am just like, sometimes I just don't, but there are people who are actually middle sex. I don't know if you guys know that as well. People who are born with both genitalia who are literally, and you can say they because he and she really doesn't, fit. But then there's also these people who spiritually feel that way, you know what I mean? Who feel like I'm not just a man or not just a woman. So and this is me trying to understand and trying to relate, is why they use that. So, I mean, LGBTQ like really is such a small way to talk about this community because there's no limit at all to, and I feel like there's really no such thing as straight people, but don't tell straight people that.
I do the same thing.
So I feel like everyone really is part of this community. They just don't know it. But there's no way to really just like have a way to say LGBTQ plus NRKW, you know what I mean? Like it has to be this kind of succinct, verbiage just to get the point across, not as to label anyone or tell what anybody is or to not shed light on types of people. It's just because like, hey, this is this group. Okay, next, you know what I mean?
Well, I think there's a difference too between like sexual orientation and gender expression or how you express your gender. So using they them pronouns, being non-binary or two-spirited is different from who do I sleep with? So it's just who I express myself as, how do I feel? And I often feel like I'm somewhere in between. Like I don't feel quite femme or masculine, somewhere in between. And oftentimes that it could come out in the way I dress or just the way I feel or how I want to be treated by a partner or friends. Like it just depends on the day, like how I'm feeling. So that's why queer works for me as well, because it just encompasses all my being versus like I want to stick into one box in particular. But yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Now I was gonna just piggyback off the idea of the G and C, like gender nonconforming people not being represented either. Like I do feel like even within, like you said, within the community, there is this space where it's like people kind of, if it's not like what you said, visually what you see, like there's some folks who identify as trans women, but they don't aesthetically look or fit into a certain mold of what society has told folks they're supposed to look like.
As far as a woman goes?
Yeah, as far as like aesthetically, like if you're like facial, some women still have facial hair. Yeah. Some women still keep their leg hair. Some women don't grow their hair very long. Just like some men are transparent too. They may not get surgeries. But it's these requirements that other people put on them, and they feel like they need to fall in line with them. So I feel like I don't know.
I don't think so because it's so deep rooted. It's literally
it
like
really
a colonial
is.
design.
I don't really talk about this here, but I saw porn the other day.
I can't.
With this dude who was trans and he still had his vagina and he had like a smaller little penis. I don't know. But I mean, it's out there. It was all on my Twitter. Everybody loved it. I watched it to completion, and it was great. Like, I don't think that.
And that's another
Well,
thing
that's-
to talk about though too. The fact that me and my business partner, we just did a video about this on our YouTube, and we talked about the fact that also there's this within the community, there's this underlining thing where it's like you was talking about before with gender identity and gender and your sexual orientation. There's folks who may transition from male to female, or from female to male, and they may date cishet men, or they may date cis men, or they may date other men of trans experience, and that's frowned upon. So it's like this. You might say, "Oh, everybody's watching it because it's there for their sexual entertainment," but they're not really trying to engage and learn something about anything dealing with trans folks at all.
Right, like it's just more than like watching people for your own benefit or for like entertainment, right?
Sure.
Like people watch all types of porn, okay?
But I feel
Like,
like that's a
people-
step. I feel like that's a step.
But
I
They
mean,
do?
well, because that's
I
how
don't
I
agree
feel
with
about.
that.
That's how I feel about art. That's how I feel about music and about film and television and how that kind of moves culture. And you know, honestly, porn is kind of that for us. We see like so many types of things that people can now be like comfortable in their own skin doing in actuality because they see it portrayed somewhere else. Now, maybe not this exact video and maybe not the people who were hearting it and retweeting it. I don't know their lives. But I'm just saying, like, if I can see that and, oh, okay, in my brain, I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable with that. That is a step further than me completely just like not even thinking
Why
about
did
it.
you need the
know what I
sexual
mean?
aspect of it to be more okay with it?
I didn't say I needed it. I just said that I saw it and I liked it.
no, but what I'm saying about that is that a lot of folks of trans experience get into sex work because that's literally the only way they can survive, right?
No,
or
I
like
know.
they are seen as sexual objects. So
Sure.
for it to just be, I mean, there's just so many other ways that we need to protect trans folk. We need to protect people.
Especially the women.
Yeah, gender nonconforming folks. That to me, porn is just. I mean, it's great. Porn is great. I'm not
Yeah,
going to
we're not gonna
say.
take away
I
that.
don't
We're
like.
not gonna take
I'm
away
not
that.
saying I don't like
Whoa.
porn.
We can all agree
But
on
what I'm
that.
saying is, but what I'm saying is, we have to do way more than that.
I
You know what I'm
mean,
saying?
of course.
Like,
I mean, I can say the same thing being a black, man, and I used to live in Atlanta, and being in that scene, like, I mean, it was really just segregated, and you really could feel like the racism, although, like, it's 2019, 2018, whatever, you could still feel it. But there was a lot of guys, white guys in particularly, who would talk about black people only sexually, but never wanted to date them, never wanted to be
it's
friends
called
with them.
racism.
Right, but I'm saying I understand that in that form, like in that way, so I get it. But at this well, actually there is no but. That's it. I get it.
And again, that's in all communities. I feel like it just trickles down. Like we have a system that's set up, and it just trickles down. So you can have white gay men that are like, objectifying the black man, or it just goes down. I've been objectified by black gay men in a fucking gay bar, and they're not even interested in me sexually. It's just I don't know. Living my best life is fine, whatever. But what I'm saying is, there's just so much more than like I want to see trans people in actual roles.
Okay.
Like
I don't
storylines.
mean to bring up porn for it to be
No,
like
not like
well,
that. But
now,
what I'm saying is,
I think-
for it to just be a normalized thing versus like,
right.
oh, I only get to see them in these
These
aspects.
Right,
That's
sure.
what I'm
Okay, has anyone seen Pose?
Yeah.
Yes. we've seen
Okay,
them.
all right.
But that's us. Outside of us, well, that's a different question.
Who's,
But
who's us? What do you mean that's us?
that's community,
That's
I'm
Ryan
saying.
Murphy.
No, I mean that's community. That's what I meant. Like us, as far as community, have all seen it, and that is exposure, and that is
Right.
great. But again, too, back in that time, a person like me is not going to be there. As far as
Right.
that, and that at that time. But and then also to piggyback off of something you said earlier, the Stonewall riot,
Mhm.
and the fact that you said gay men, white gay men especially, were like the forefront, the face,
Right.
but it was Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera
Right.
who were there and fighting, and along with other people like Miss Major and so on and so forth. But they were the ones there too, and it's kind of like that history is now being presented in 2019.
Right.
And that's this conversation we're having now. When before it was just looked at, okay, well, it was a gay right movement, and that was that.
Right. I understand.
The women were
I get
dismissed.
that. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is a way that you think that you can make people outside of the community see us, all of us, in a better light?
That's what's wrong.
I don't think that's my responsibility.
Yeah,
Like
I
I
don't
just
think I'm interested in that.
like feel like taking that on. It's like if you want to educate yourself and elevate yourself because you like respect other human beings and like how they identify,
I feel like
then
that's
great.
not a lot
But
of people, so.
but it's like, why does it have to be on us to not only like bear the burden of like this oppression and like just our like everyday life, and then also be like teachers and resources and counselors to people who are like trying to learn?
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
I mean, as an artist, that is kind of my mission. Like, so I am one of the ones who don't mind taking it on. And that's why I'm like thinking of you, and I'm like, you know, after this, let's go, let's write. Cause like that's how you, that's what I mean about like art or, you know, film or seeing something, even if it's just on Twitter, like that moves culture, and that is the only way that people engage in things these days is
But
through
that's not.
social
That's
media
also not new
and
because
through film and no, that's not new, but the way to present something now, that's how you do it. That's how
No,
you get it into
absolutely.
the water source.
What
you
is
know?
what kind of art do you do? Like, how do you showcase the community so that other folks will see? Like,
Well, I mean, I'm a singer-songwriter, so
Okay.
I, you know, make music and I tell stories that are just part of the human condition, and gay just happens to be a part of it, and it's not, you know, particularly
All of
gay.
it. Yeah, I
It's
get what you're
just
saying.
real. It's just me because I'm like you. That's it. And then that just comes forth with the visuals. But I also write as far as television and film, and there's a series that I'm developing with myself on my laptop, but with about just a positive Black male, and even that is something where you don't see on television. HIV positive male, where that is not even like the focal point of the story. It's just something that happens to be part of the story because one, that is actually my story, and two, that's just part of reality. But if you heard, you know, or the mainstream heard about somebody famous, if Chris Brown, you know, had HIV tomorrow, oh my God, like the stigma, what people would feel, what people would say about him after that. But you can't just be you can't be fine. Like you can't just be an artist. You can't just. So that is the way to do that for my art form, is to put it in a form that people can see it, where they can identify with it, because I think that's really what people lack. I think when they think about gay people who aren't in the community, when they think about gay people, they think that they're so outside of themselves, that they're so different than them, that they become detached just from us gaining rights and all these other things. And I just, you know, it became a time where, like in the 80s, where somebody was like, somebody you know is gonna catch this, or somebody you know is gay, you know, when people started realizing it was just people, it was just someone that they actually knew, it was their son, it was their friend, it was, you know, then they started to be like, oh, right, okay, so now I get it. But until that's gone, it's, I think, somebody's responsibility to be like, hey, we are here, we are human, and that's all I want you to know. Because if you get that understanding, maybe the other stuff will come.
No, yeah, absolutely, I agree. I mean, I have a platform with my business partner, Sir Knight, and it's on YouTube, and we talk about our experiences, and then we also talk about issues affecting the community. So people can learn from our content, but at the same time, we realize too that people aren't really checking out content. People like the visual. Some people might just look at us like, oh, these are two cute guys, but they're not reading. They're not reading, they're not watching, you know, or it just depends. So it's like, yeah, social media can be an outlet, but it depends on what's pulling people.
I know, man, I know, I get that.
Yeah. I agree with that. So like most of what I'm really interested in is like the fashion side of things. Like, how do people feel good in what they wear, and shopping in a you know, a very binary like industry. Like, how do you find clothes that fit for you or make you feel your best, right? But also thinking about what Lovemore is saying right now. It's again, there's a lot going on in the community where I think like we have so many things we need to talk about in terms of mental health, our identities, how to thrive, pulling resources together. And oftentimes you can feel like there's just like this celebrity status, like who looks the best, like who gets the most likes, who's the most popular, and how do I look when I come out to a party, or like, you know, who loves me or who doesn't love me, you know what I'm saying? So there's just so much work to be done within the community, but I feel like because we've been so marginalized, a lot of times that gets lost, where it becomes like a popularity contest versus like us getting the work done. So I hear you when people are just like, oh, we like this because we think you're cute, but it's like, are you reading the text that I'm like talking about?
Right.
Are you educating yourself on what it is that you need to do? How are your relationships? Are they good? Like, you know, what's going on with inside you? Like, how are you feeling? So I don't know.
No, that's fair.
So
yeah, no, I mean, my form of expression is like writing. I'm a writer, and I like to explore a lot of like questions of like identity, politics of identity, and I think I often find that like the reason so many people are like uncomfortable, or there's such a stigma around like the queer community, is because like the queer community like unfolds and sheds a lot of like kind of like the norms and like comforts of like what we've learned is like normalized, right? So things that literally have a history in like colonial design, things like the binaries that just make things so easy. It's black, it's white, it's girl, it's boy. It's just like you don't have to think about it. But it's like the work really comes when you start like taking off those layers and figure out what's under that, and that makes people really scared.
Makes them uncomfortable.
And makes them really uncomfortable, and they don't want to sit with that discomfort
because they would have to question themselves, honestly.
Exactly. And they don't want to do that. And it's hella work to do that. And it's like, but if they're not doing that, then instead it like comes out as like hatred and stigma. And
that's what I'm saying. Like the work that I do and anything that I do, like anything that I'm producing and creating, like I also do photo, video, all these. Like I just like to learn. I'm like a lifelong learner. But in everything that I do is for my community. You know what I'm saying? I feel like the people outside of the community, like cis hetero folk, are always looking to the community. Even if we think they are not, they are always looking to the community.
Always checking for the culture.
They're checking for the culture. They're checking to see.
I'm hearing that a lot.
Quote
I'm hearing
unquote.
a lot of shit.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Who's
I
fabulous?
said that in 2005.
Right.
No.
And they pull from the culture, but they're not
engaging.
They're not engaging with the culture in a way to protect the culture. And again, you can see the same thing when you talk about white folk going into POC. Like they are watching the culture, they steal the culture, they will call it ghetto, and then the next day they're profiting off of it.
Yeah.
So it's just like all of these things are just patterns, and you just got to look at it and see that it's a pattern. And so for me, it's like I don't care what cis hetero folk think about me or my work. My work is for my people to help my people. Right. And if from there it becomes bigger than that, okay, cool.
Correct.
But like for me, it's like my main source of inspiration is for somebody to see me and say, hey, I found somebody that looks like me.
Right.
Right? Because to me, like growing up, I didn't have that.
Right.
Right? So I grew up in like, my parents are Haitian. Like my mom is super religious. Like I didn't see queer people.
Yeah.
I didn't see a lot of folk, you know, until I like decided to search for that in college or like move to New York City, and now I found like chosen family. But I didn't have that growing up. So it's like to not see yourself is like the biggest thing for me.
As far as our community goes, like we talk about who is in it and who's outside of it and who's looking on it and whose responsibility it is to talk about it or not talk about it or not have that responsibility. But who gets to decide who's in the community? Like who decides who is part of LGBTQ plus?
There is no outside person, I don't believe. You decide if you belong inside the community. I feel like you said that earlier.
Yeah.
Like each of us decide?
Yeah, I'm not in the business of policing.
Yeah, I would say I'm not going to tell you don't belong. And there's people who do that. You know, they'll tell you, you don't look this much enough like this, or you don't. There are people who police, but I'm not in a position. I'm not in that place. I wouldn't do that.
The only thing I'm wary of is sometimes when heterosexual people kind of like want to like just dip their toe into the queer community and not really like. They're not really all in. They just want to like explore or like they're curious or like they want to do it for whatever, just like make out with a girl for whatever, for the gram, for fun, for the experience, and then not really be about it. Because I think that's really harmful. So that's the only thing I'm like worried about. But other than that, I'm like, again, like we've been talking about, like human sexuality and like gender is just so vast and fluid. Like
Right.
you can be so many different versions of yourself at different times in your
Different
life.
time. Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
Exactly.
and so it's like there's no way I'm gonna pinpoint and tell you
Right.
like. 'cause
I
you never
think
know.
what's important is that there needs to be openness to that, because when like just our community is stigmatized through just heterosexual people and that whole thing, there are people who are uncomfortable with going. So there may be some people who are dipping their toe in, but it's because like they've just been conditioned to be like, oh my God, I can't be. So then when they, want to go out and try it, they're scared, so it's like, I think, yeah, it's not our responsibility or anybody's responsibility really to educate, people on something that they are ignorant about and that they're choosing to be ignorant about.
Right.
But at some point you have to fight for that because of other people who they're conditioning, you know what I mean? So,
It's hard. It really just comes down to respect. At the
Yeah.
end of the day. Like,
And not
I mean,
fetishizing
that sounds
people.
great. That sounds amazing.
It
But
would be
this is
amazing.
Trump's America. Things are different. So,
Even before Trump's America.
Yeah.
Word, even before he
Yeah.
just brought it to the forefront.
Yeah,
it was there.
it was already
It was
there.
there.
Well, that's the thing. So, what are we gonna do afterwards? Like, what are we doing to make sure that that's like something that the new generation like combats? That they're better. I mean, although we probably have like 10 years left on this earth, but like,
Wow.
if
That
we
was
don't,
short.
That was
That
dark.
was very
That was
short.
dark.
but if we don't, what can we do to help like the community bring us forward?
Well, to be honest with you, the youth is leading the movement right now.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm in my late 20s. I'm not old, but what I'm saying is folks younger than me are already pushing this
They
through.
are.
You know what I'm
You're
saying?
right.
If you're even looking at, like, for me, I like watching a lot of what's happening in the fashion world and things like that. You're seeing more like companies trying to, they're clumsily doing it, but trying to move into the non-binary or like unisex clothing and things like that. We have more young people today that are just ready and open with like exploring their identities earlier at a young age and like really speaking out about that. And I think again, they're the people that are going to be, moving in and ushering like a new movement. And we just need to be behind them to support them, honestly. So I don't honestly, I think the kids are okay. Like they're fine.
The kids
But
are all right.
Now the
They're
kids
alright,
are okay because my little cousin,
yeah,
he's
but they,
a cishet dude,
yeah.
and he is completely open, like with his friends. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like I don't know, or a pushback. It's a lot of welcoming and openness, And
Literally everyone is part of our community.
he's open.
Even your
I mean,
little cousin.
he listens to Tyler, was Tyler the Creator,
Yeah.
and he's very open and fluid about his sexuality, and that, like you said, media that helps him be more understanding.
Yeah. So everybody's part of our community except for perfect.
Except for Trump.
Love it. Okay, well, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys again.